What do you think about its brother,
Heroes X.
Heroes
Oh,
X?
dude. Oh, I love this item actually. I mean, I'm not buying it enough for some reason. I actually love it. It is slightly boring because it's just purely defensive. So like in a rank game, I just kind of want to avoid this. But
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fun, and I think it can lead to like a pretty disgusting amount of like survivability for your team. This is one item that helps your team, and you actually like visibly see it. Like you
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
shield on the guy that got
Yeah.
CC'd.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's video, if you will, I want to take a minute to talk to you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Opera GX. Opera GX is a browser specifically designed and tailored for gamers like you and me. I love its sleek design, which is highly customizable if you want to do so in the top right of the browser. It isn't just for looks though, it also has some really cool features that I've already started using in my day-to-day adventures at my computer. Opera GX has a cool page called GX Corner that keeps you up to date with game releases and updates in the industry, and good game deals consolidated into one place. This browser has an interesting little feature called GX Control, allowing you to control how much RAM and CPU the browser can use so that when you're gaming, you won't have to worry about certain sites taking up all your PC's power. Chrome. On the left is also a music player widget that you can jam out to, all while not having to worry about RAM overuse due to the control features that I just mentioned. It also has this nice Twitch integration so that no matter where you are on the interwebs, you can speed run your way back to Twitch and get back to happier places.
I think you're ahead of the game.
And since you guys play Smite, I know you all love free stuff. Opera GX actually has a built-in ad blocker, which can be enabled in the top right by the push of a button, which you can use on other pesky websites besides YouTube, of course. Opera GX is free to download, so if you want to check out the description to broaden your browsing horizons, then you can feel free to do so. But once again, thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring today's video. Let's get right into it. What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another YouTube video. Of course, I mean, you're watching YouTube, so of course it's a YouTube video, but today's YouTube video is going to be special. I'm once again going to be joined by Deathwalker, who I'll talk to in just a moment. But we're going to be doing an item tier list for Season 8. We're going to start out with the starter items and their upgrades and talk all about those because that's, you know, those are the big additions to Season 8. And we're also going to be considering this going into the next patch. So if you're watching this video as of the day that it's made, or the maybe, you know, the first week that it's made, there is going to be a patch where a lot of these starter items are getting slightly changed. So we're going to consider that when we're talking about these. But we've played enough right now to kind of get a good feel for all these starter items and their upgrades, especially Deathwalker and I. We've both been, you know, experimenting a lot with all these upgrades. So if anybody's going to tell you a good, you know, like have a good source for these, for this info, it's going to be us, you know. So, and then we're going to move on and go towards the actual, all the items, whether it's in this video, maybe at the end of the video, or maybe we do a different video for that. I'm not sure yet, but we're going to get right into it. We're going to have the actual starter items themselves over here on the right, and we're going to put the letter that we think they are, just because it didn't, this tier list actually didn't include all the starter items, the actual starter items. So we're going to put the letter over here on this notepad, and then we'll then move over here and move the upgrades into the actual tier list. So hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty simple. And, you know, I'll just go like, say we think Death Toll is S, then I'll just go like -S. So Death Toll is now -S. Make sense? Hopefully it does. But yeah, we're going to get right into the video. Let me go ahead and unmute. What's up, Deathwalker?
Hello, hello, Fonzo family. I'm your tier list guy for the season, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, I was about to say welcome back. I guess your second tier list. The last one was 4 hours. Let's try and cut down the time on that one. Even though I think
No,
a lot of people enjoyed it. I think a lot of people watched. The majority of it, people are saying that they like kept it on while they were at work or did this, that, or the other, and just kind of listened to it the whole time. And that's pretty cool. Especially
maybe
people
have
listen to Smite for
maybe have
4
this
hours.
one be like 3 hours.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. So yeah, we're gonna do exactly what we did last time, where we just switch off each time to talk about every other one. And you know what? Since you're a guest and this is your item, Deathwalker, how about you start us off with Death Toll?
Damn. All right. Well, I mean, Devstall, this is just a very strong starter item. Like, super good stats, really good, nice passive. You can fit it on in both hunters and like solo lane characters. A couple of solo lane characters only, though, which is a shame. But you could probably still play around with it even on characters that don't use it too well. But it's just a really nice sustain item. Has good upgrades too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would, if I had to throw it somewhere, I'd probably put it like A plus, maybe On certain characters, I feel like, at least with the upgrade, I mean, once we start talking about the upgrades, it could be pretty ridiculous. But I like the reason I like it in A plus around there is just because you can buy it on magicals and physicals. Now, most of the time you're gonna be buying on physicals, and that's like where it's actually strong. But there are some magical characters that can make some nice use out of it, and I kind of really like it on them. So just because of that versatility, I'd probably throw it in A plus as a starter item.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with Deathstone. I feel like it's so good, like so well rounded. The only problem, I guess, again, is like it's slightly more situational on who you want to buy it on. But when you do buy it, it's really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Then as far as its upgrades, now we are keeping in mind, like I said, that we're talking about the Death's Embrace that will no longer heal off of towers. If we were talking about the current Death's Embrace, I'd probably throw it in somewhere like S, just because that was kind of a game-breaking mechanic, and you could backdoor with it. You could just fight nonstop, no matter where you're on the map. You could take objectives with it, which that will still work. So that's still going to be something strong about it. And it just kind of allows hunters can build this, and it can be like their only sustain item for the most part. Soul winners and mainly like warriors and some assassins can build this and just be very, very hard to kill from the sustain. But I think just with the notch down from not healing off of towers, I'd throw it in somewhere like A plus is probably where I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, Death's Embrace, I feel like is one of the better starter item power spikes. It's at least it's up there. It packs a punch, kind of similar to how Sundering Axe would. If you feel really good about this upgrade, and it just works so well. You can solo Fire Giant. You can well, I guess wait, is it changed that you can't do it off objectives anymore, like Fire Giant and stuff?
It's
Or
just structures that you can't.
okay, so you could still have a lot of Fire Giant pressure with this item, and every time you get poked out, you can just heal it back up pretty fast, no matter who you are. Just a very strong item. I wouldn't say it's broken though. I mean, it's literally just strong sustain. It's not mad stats or anything like that.
Yeah, agreed.
A plus, I think. Death's Temper. This is kind of a weird one because I think this item actually on paper seems pretty nice, like that you get bonus damage, but I feel like it's kind of situational, and that's what's dragging it down. It has a very specific condition under which it functions. The stats are roughly the same as Death's Embrace, if not a little bit worse, but the passive can be good, and it can be basically you having no passive. So I wouldn't rate it too highly. I'd probably put this item in B, but we might see people play around with it a bit more.
Yeah, I think the problem before was that every scenario that you fought Death's Toll, you kind of just wanted to raise. And now that maybe it's notched down a little bit, you can probably mess around with this a good bit more. It does kind of require things to die near you, kind of like a Talisman of Energy or something. So it has that kind of like condition, but it does have 30% attack speed just slapped on it as well. Depending on the character, some auto attack like assassins or warriors in solo might actually be able to make some good use of it. So I'd say maybe just around A. Just keep it in A for now. And like I said, I think it was okay. It's just it was hard to justify it over going Death's Embrace most of the time. So
Yeah, true.
moving on, we have Bluestone as our next starter item. So Bluestone is such a weird item for me. I think it's actually one of the better early mid-game items. It allows you to hyper farm, kind of like how it did in the past. On certain gods, it's just really nice for getting lane pressure, for poking people out. The problem I see with it is the upgrades. Like, you don't ever really want to buy Bluestone just because you kind of crutch yourself into not being able to get an actual item later on in the game, because all these other side items are so nice for builds that if you go Bluestone and you kind of recognize that you're not going to upgrade it, you're basically just all-inning the early to mid game. Besides maybe on like a character like Wukong or some other character that you could upgrade it on and it would still be okay on. But as an actual starter item, since we're just talking about the starter item, I think it's around A, because I think it does its job and it's actually pretty good at that. The problem is I think once you get into the talk of the upgrades is where it lacks.
Yeah, Bluestone for me, I agree with the A. By the way, I think a big problem with this item is I think this might be the most specific like god character combo if you want to buy Bluestone. Like I don't think I've ever seen this item outside of Solo Lane, first of all, and I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
seen this item that is if it's not like a Wukong, Kokolin, Tyr, or what am I missing? Like Arthur. It's so like specific who you want to buy it on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even crazy impressive. It does have nice sustain though, so I think the A is pretty fair placement.
Yeah, the base stats are okay. I do buy it always on tier. I think the pressure you get from it with. What do you think of Brooch though?
Oh my god, this. I mean, it's just a bad Sundering Axe. I think this
Yeah, pretty
item.
much.
I guess Brooch, like one good thing, if you do get a lot of ability hits in, it could overall do more damage. But the stats are really bad in my opinion, and the passive is just so like I don't know, it's so situational in which cases it's better than some other item that it's just not really worth it.
Yeah, it keeps people in combat, I guess, which can be good for like blinks and stuff. But yeah, just the other items are almost always better. And something you guys got to keep in mind for all this tier list is that right now you basically have 4 item slots because you have to have boots, obviously, and you also like majority of the time want to have a starter upgrade. So it's hard to justify an item like this over any of these other upgrades for one, but also just like other items in the game, that maybe, I haven't done the math, but I'm sure Heartseeker or Erendite will be overall more damage than an item like this. So if you're trying to go like a greedy route and have a pure damage item, then maybe this is the right one. But yeah, I would throw it in. I'd probably throw it in B. Maybe argue C, but maybe I actually haven't messed around with too much with the corrupted Bluestone. Is that what it's called? It's called corrupted Bluestone, right?
Yep.
The redstone basically from Minecraft. I don't think it's too great. It's a really weird item because the item it gives you attack speed, correct? You basically steal attack speed from them. They have their attack speed reduced by a certain amount per stack, and then you actually get that. But the base of the item you're building on ability based characters, and you don't really want the attack speed on. For example, like you don't want this on tier, and that's Bluestone is basically tier's item. You don't want this really on Wukong, even though attack speed on Wukong isn't the worst. I mean, it can kind of slap. It just doesn't really make sense as an item, as an upgrade for ability based characters. So in my opinion, I honestly think it doesn't really have an identity. So it's probably like C.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was about to say. If you didn't mention it, like this item just has no real place right now. It's just no purpose in buying this item at all. There's no identity. You're buying an ability based starter item, but then you're upgrading it into an auto attack based
Yeah.
starter item. Which I don't know. I think it's a good idea, but if they put it somewhere else, maybe it would seem more purchased. Just because of the fact, like you don't really ever want to have an auto attacker by Bluestone. I think that's the only reason you don't really see this item much. It might have some use, but it's just so shit at the start.
Yeah. I could see it maybe working on like Cuckoo, but then at that point, I don't know. Cuckoo can work with everything, so it's not really the item.
True.
What do you think of Sentinels?
Oof, yeah, well, this is the go-to support starter item right
Yeah.
now, dude. Jesus. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're going to see a Sentinel's Gift every game in its current place. It did get a slight nerf, but it's only 100 gold just to put it more in place in terms of price. I wouldn't really lower it much because of that. It's got it all. It has mad sustain, gold gain, good stats, and some of the best upgrades in the game.
Yep.
Probably S, if not S+, I think.
Yeah, I threw it in S. I could honestly, let's just throw it in S+. Sentinel's Gift is S+, to be honest.
I think every support is probably just gonna buy this. Like, there's really no reason to buy any of the other support starter items. I think it's probably deserves S+.
Yep, I agree with that. And I mean, like you said, part of the reason is the upgrades you get from it are really insane, and it is like, whenever you're thinking about the starter items, you got to think about it in context of what are the other options. And Sentinel's Gift, as it stands, is like there's no reason to buy any of the other items. It's just so much better, especially for the support role, which is the role that you're buying it in. Like the extra gold gain and all the sustain that you get from it just allows you to stay out on the map for long periods of time and like do your job. And one of the upgrades that you can get from it is Sentinel's Boom. Now, not quite as good as Sentinel's Embrace, in my opinion, but I still think that if Sentinel's Embrace wasn't so OP, this would be such a sick item. The problem is that almost always you want to buy Sentinel's Embrace just because it's like Gauntlet of Thieves on steroids. It's amazing. We'll talk about it in a second, I guess. But I do think Sentinel's Boon is actually really sick. It gives you a ton of sustain. If you or if you're near minions that are dying, you get actually a ton of HP back. It also gives you a ton of gold. So if you're playing like a support that wants to like be able to sell their boots or maybe get like a 3K pot, you're gonna get it in absolutely no time. It kind of is. It sounds a little bit weird because you're getting an extra gold gain as a support, but it can work out. And I just think that sustain is really nice. I think it's A+. and you could maybe argue it's like A, or maybe even argue higher. The problem is it's really hard to get a nice gauge on this item just because Sentinel's Embrace is so sick.
Okay, dude, I will die on this hill, but I think Boon is better than Embrace. I will
Really?
actually die on this hill. I am willing to get roasted everywhere, but I think Boon is better than Embrace. Like, I mean, I would personally put this item in S. I think it's so fun, honestly,
Let's
to
do
play
it.
with this item. It feels so good as well to have your build online so fun. Like, you literally, like, say you do fire, and then you siege, and you back. You're probably gonna back with like 3 to 4K gold after 2 towers or something.
Yeah, it definitely speeds it up.
Uh, it's so funny, this item. It's fun to play, and it feels great. And the sustain is actually underestimated, I think. Like, oftentimes, like, say you do a lane fight, and the creep wave just happens to spawn. That support just got healed for almost 20% of his HP.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's better than Embrace, and I will die on this hill.
Fair enough. I actually haven't messed around with it in solo, like skipping, like going boots 2, rushing my starter, or rushing my boots, and then going it later on in the game. And I kind of want to now. I want to see, like, especially in like one of those greedy characters, like let's say like Wukong, and then you get like maybe you get a Heartseeker a little bit earlier, and then you can like sell your boots for Erendite and just have like this nasty build like early on in the game. That might be kind of nice. I will
Yeah,
personally.
it feels like you're cheating. It feels like you're cheating when you have Sentinel's Boon, when you get so much gold. Like, honestly.
Yeah. Well, since you did say that you think it's better than Embrace, would you also put Embrace in S?
I mean, I
Because
would put
is so
Embrace
sick.
in S. I think it deserves the spot, but
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think Boon is just better.
Okay.
I mean, it might not be, obviously, but I mean, that's at least my opinion.
Yeah,
And you're happy to share the same opinion.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it's really good. The problem I see is that it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's greedy. It's kind of greedier than like a typical support item. And if you have Sentinel's Embrace plus all your auras, like, it's hard to gauge how useful that is and how impactful it is in winning the game. Like, whenever you have Sentinel's Boon, you get all this extra gold, you get your item quicker, you can feel that, you feel the healing really quickly, and it's like you can feel like the impact of the item. But sometimes with like items like Sentinel's Embrace or like Gauntlet of Thieves, like, it's really small impacts that like could change the course of the game, you know what I mean? So it's hard to, I think it's kind of hard to argue, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, obviously, Sentinel's Embrace, I mean, deserves this S spot. It's, yeah, as you said, it's Gauntlet of Thieves on steroids. I don't think we have to say much more than that. And that is one thing that's like slightly annoys me for items like, say, Sentinel's Embrace, or I mean, even Spartan Flag, as we like move on, or say Compassion. Like, it's hard to really get an idea how impactful this item really is, other than just how people feel when they have it, right?
yeah, exactly.
So it's hard to say, but obviously, just even stat wise, you don't even have to buy this item. You can just look at it and say it's strong.
Yeah, but you'll probably end up buying it.
True.
And oh, I guess I get to talk about War Flag. Okay, so War Flag is well, like I said before, it's it's not really worth purchasing over something like Sentinels, because even on the gods that you like, it's supposed to be like this aggressive starter item for supports. But even on those characters, you just rather have more gold and more sustain from Sentinels. It just, because it always has that safety net of like, if you get behind, then Sentinel's going to help you with that. Whereas War Flag doesn't really have that, and the aggressive stats that you get from it aren't really worth it over the stats that you get from Sentinels. And right now, at the end of the day, some things that can save the starter item is the upgrades. Like, maybe you don't really want the starter item, but you'll just like wait till later on in the game and get the upgrades. But the upgrades of War Flag aren't like, I wouldn't say they're that bad. I've messed around with like going them here and there, but it's another one of those items that's hard to get like a real impact feel for, and all that. So I think War Flag's kind of just down in the dumps a little bit, just because of the other options that you can go. But I think maybe with the changes that it might bump up a little bit. I'd probably throw it in A with the changes.
Oof, down in the dump. I didn't think you'd mean A, but
well, they did buff it. They gave it some gold gain, right? Did they not?
Wait, I think they buffed it just in duration, not really gold gain or anything.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's just longer.
Okay,
lasting.
never mind.
I mean,
B then.
I guess it's not a bad thing. I'd personally put it in B. Yeah, I mean,
I'll
I
throw
think
in
B
B.
fits it a bit more. It's pretty niche. I mean, you can definitely get some value out of it, but again, like, why risk with such an item when you could just have no risk but more reward with Sentinel's Gift?
Well said. That is true.
And then War Banner. I mean, I think War Banner is actually pretty decent. It's basically a talisman on steroids. So like you get a lot of movement speed, a lot of attack speed. It's not that bad, but I wouldn't really say it's super strong. I think the stats are actually really underwhelming for this item. Like every time I buy War Banner upgrades, or just War Flag upgrades, like both War Banner and Spartan Flag, I always feel horrible because of the stats. It
Yeah.
feels like you're making yourself way weaker for no reason, just to like slightly boost other players.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely rated it B.
Yeah, it only has 30 power on it, and it doesn't have any prots. Like maybe if it like they could honestly probably remove the 30 power and give like let's just say 30 of each prot plus 300 health, and it would probably feel a lot better because it's kind of in that weird spot where it gives you power and health, but it's like your last item, and you kind of want a greedy item there, and it just doesn't really make sense as that. The passive can be pretty useful, but I'd probably throw it in just somewhere around B. You can maybe mess around in some builds with like this plus talisman plus like shoguns, and just like you probably max out your teammates' attack speed pretty quickly, even when they don't have too many attack speed items. So it's fun for that reason, but I would say not too viable, especially over the other options. So probably sitting around B. And then moving on to the Spartan flag, I actually love this item. Like as a concept, I love the item. Just like dropping a banner down, kind of like just like ulting in as Bologna and getting some extra power. But again, it's one of those items that's just really hard to, because it increases your teammates' power by 10%. And it's like whenever you're in the middle of a fight, it's not something that you can really see or like gauge very well. As an idea, like you said, like the base stats kind of hold it back. So the concept behind the item, I think maybe just gets held back by those base stats. But I personally think it'd probably just be kind of similar to the other flag and just be sitting in B.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also B. I think the base stats, just like War Flag stats, just bother me so much. It always, there's the same thought goes through my head whenever I buy any of the War Flag upgrades. It's just like I have the worst stats ever, but I'm slightly boosting my team though.
Yeah.
I don't know how good this boost is, but I mean, I'm doing something.
Yeah, hopefully they tell me
So
how well it's helping them.
I think, I mean, the concept's really fun though. I would like to see this item get purchased way more, but I think it's gotta need some buffs first in order for you to see this item more. Maybe not necessarily in support because it's competing with Sentinel's gift, but at least like a fun solo lane option for if you don't have a starter item, right? Like if you go Spartan Flag, but at least get slightly rewarded for buying it and don't completely kill your build.
Yeah. I kind of see both these items similar to the upgrades for Benevolence, where the base stats are just, the concepts behind the items are really, really cool, but the base stats on all of them are just so like trash that it's really hard to make it worth it. But yeah.
Oh, Warriors, thanks. I thought this would be the go-to solo lane starter item, but for some reason, every time I buy the starter item, it actually doesn't feel that great. I think it's like a safe starter option where you're not gonna die necessarily, but you're not gonna do anything. So when you buy Warriors Axe, you're not playing to win lane, you're playing to not lose lane.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just kind of whatever. I put it at A just because like it does its job. There's not much to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. This is the item that you guys should be going if you're like not a solo main and you get like stuck to playing solo in your random rank games and you don't want to lose your team the game. This item will still do that for you. It did receive a nerf like a month ago or maybe a few weeks ago where they took out the flat damage reduction on it, and that definitely helped. That definitely helped the meta in solo. Made it so it wasn't just this on every single character every single game, but it's still like just a can't really go too wrong with it, and you just kind of got to play around the weaknesses. Like you're not going to have power early game, so you're not going to clear as well. Maybe rely on your jungler a little bit more, but you're not going to be easily ganked, and it just has that kind of benefit to it. But on the flip side of that, its upgrade, Sundering Axe, is probably one of the better upgrades in the game. You're seeing people buy it in the mid lane right now, just because of the percentage health damage on the passive. Basically like a better Soul Reaver for those characters. It also gives them some damage reduction or some prots and stuff, so they can survive some of those late game dies from like the jungler and the solo. So it kind of just makes them do a little bit more damage and also makes them tankier. And it's just kind of like a nice upgrade for them. But even in solo, it's still a really good item. Allows some solo laners late game with tank builds or bruiser builds to actually kill people. Actually have some damage late game in those scenarios. I would say it's probably around S. Maybe you could argue A+, but I think with the versatility right now, people like buying it in mid kind of makes it and bumps it up to S.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna maybe argue even for S+, but I think S is where it actually belongs. Sundering Axe. So the only time where this item actually doesn't do anything is when people are low HP. So say like in the middle of a team fight, it's not actually the greatest item ever, but that's about it. Like it's so good for poke. It has really good base stats, and it actually heals you as well. Like it's just so well rounded in every aspect, except for this one small thing where it doesn't actually pop off too hard. So I think that's the only thing holding it back from S+.
Yeah, but the cool thing about like buying this in solo is that most of the time your job as a solo laner is to go and when people are full health and like be in the middle of everything, so you kind of do get value out of it most of the time. So
Yeah, it's just like not a great like mid laner thing for that aspect alone, right? As you
yeah,
were saying, like the versatility option is there, but it just doesn't. It's not as strong for that kind of playstyle. So
for sure.
the item is slightly held back, but I think that's just to keep it more in check rather than for it to be like the best item in the game.
What do you think about its brother,
Heroes Axe.
Heroes
Oh,
Axe?
dude. Oh, I love this item, actually. I mean, I'm not buying it enough for some reason. I actually love it. It is slightly boring because it's just purely defensive. So, like, in a ranked game, I just kind of want to avoid this. But
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fun. And I think it can lead to, like, a pretty disgusting amount of, like, survivability for your team. This is one item that helps your team, and you actually, like, visibly see it. Like, you see
Yeah.
the shield on the guy that got
Yeah.
CC'd. Decent stats too. It has a a lot of CCR for some reason slapped on it, but I mean, other than that, like the stats are pretty nice. I don't understand the 30%. It just doesn't really add up mathematically.
Yeah.
But pretty fun item. It's a good defensive option, and it's like if you're playing rather than diving, you play to like peel more for a solo laner. This is probably the go-to.
It is. I would say it's probably around A. The thing, I think it has crowd control reduction on it because the passive wants you to get CC'd. So they're like, well, let's throw some CCR. So you get CC'd, but not for long, and then you get a shield to somebody. But yeah, it's kind of in that situation where you don't really ever buy it over Warriors Axe in the meta right now as a solo laner. If you're going like this route, a lot of times you're going to be diving, or you're not going to be just like sitting there peeling. There's not a lot of that peel play style being played too much, so kind of like a dive meta. So I think if the meta were to shift, this item would shoot up maybe to like S or something. But I would say it's in just like a decent spot where if you want to play that play style, it can pop off. That shield can be very good for peeling, but sometimes it's just better to be more aggressive and to kill people quicker instead of being defensive.
Yeah, I agree with the A placement. But the item, honestly, in terms of how funny it is, S+.
This is a fun tier list. It would be shooting up there. So yeah, moving on to Eye of the Jungle. This is basically the second option for junglers, like their second start. Actually seeing a ton of play. It's been kind of the go-to start for at least like right now, I think in like NA ranked and stuff. People have been going this on their hunter jungles because there's been a lot of Apollos. There's been a lot of like Chernobyls. You name it. They've been playing it in the jungle with the hunters. Danzaburu, and it makes sense. It gets attack speed on it, so it actually allows you to be a lot more aggressive in that mid 2v2, like up to level 5. You get, I think, 10 power from it and 15% attack speed, which is just really good for that early game. Just allows you to outtrade people, so that the actual start of it is pretty dang strong. And then obviously the passive where it throws down a ward every time you kill camp is kind of nice. I think maybe it's maybe underappreciated a little bit. I think across the board. I think most people are just buying it for the stats, and obviously the upgrades later on in the game. But I actually think Eye of the Jungle is very, very good. And the only reason it may not be as good as Boombas Hammer, or maybe like not as viable, is just that it's a little bit more expensive, so you can't go Boots 2 with it. But I think this item's really good. I would honestly throw it in S.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think what also makes this item so well, obviously the stats, right? Like the stats are just insane for a starter item. You kind of want it on every single character. I mean, you could probably put it on a mid laner and he's gonna be happy about it.
Yeah.
Like you literally could start 5-man Eye of the Jungle. Well, except for support, you go Sentinel's gift. Like a 4-man Eye of the Jungle and I'm pretty sure you're gonna make it work. I don't know. It's such a good
You'd have a
starter
lot of
item.
wards on the map.
It's not overwhelming though, but it just feels so damn good, and it's so nice the stats that it gives.
Mm-hmm. The versatility is pretty crazy. Can't really go wrong with it in 4 roles, honestly. Yeah, this one's Eye of the Jungle. Is this one? This item is so bad, dude. Let's go ahead and throw it in C.
Oh, this is the only starter item that I've never seen purchased. Oh my god!
It's Seer.
Well,
it's called Seer
I
of the
don't know.
Jungle. Yeah.
Yeah, Seer of the Jungle. Oh my god, man, this starter item is so bad, dude. Like, it's unbelievably bad, honestly. It's impressively bad.
Yeah. It's astonishing. What other words
Yeah.
can we use?
Like, so first of all, the stats aren't actually that good. They're just straight up worse than Protector of the Jungle. I think maybe after the past they might be a bit better, but that's just luck. That's because Pursuer of the Jungle is lucky to be bad, so it's not touched. And Seer of the Jungle, dude, the passive is just so bad, man. Like, it feels like they're trying to push this mechanic with being able to see wards, but every time, just nobody cares about it.
Yeah, it's really weird. And it's after you kill the objective as well, so it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Like, why would you
have
want
to
to
like
deward
sprint.
after?
You have to like sprint to deward everything after you've done the objective.
Yeah, you like kill Fire Giant. You're like in a 5v5, and you're like, hold on, let me go clear this ward real quick, guys.
Oh, I see that sentry over there has 50 G.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I don't know. It doesn't really the passive. This is the opposite of a concept that just doesn't really make sense. There's concepts behind items that we like that just can't really work because of the base stats or other things, but this is a concept that I just think is stupid and probably shouldn't be in the game. So, and the base stats just don't really make up for it. So it's honestly C tier. I don't think you should ever buy
Honestly,
this.
if there was a lower tier, I'd put it there. Like,
Yeah.
maybe just make a new tier just for this item. That's like it doesn't do it. Like, Redstone right now it feels sad because this item is in the same tier as Redstone.
Yeah, that's true. The thing is, it does have the 30% increased damage to objectives, but it just doesn't like how the game really works. You're not just trying to all in an objective with your horrible starter item. But on the opposite end, the other option that you have is Protector in the Jungle, and Protector in the Jungle is pretty good. It is being of the changes in the upcoming patch. This nerf to Protector of the Jungle is probably one of the bigger ones. They definitely nerfed the base stats a good bit, but I still think that this starter item is really good. Or I guess starter upgrade. I would probably throw it in somewhere like A+. If it wasn't being nerfed, I would probably put it in S, because just everything that you get from it is really, really nice. All the base stats. It's very, very versatile. You can build it in solo. You can build it in jungle. You can build it in mid if you wanted to. And if you didn't have to go Sentinels because of the OP upgrades, probably build in support and ADC. People have been building in ADC with like Berserkers and just getting a ton of value out of their prot and their power. And yeah, I think honestly, maybe we should throw it in S. I don't care about the nerf. What do you think?
Honestly, if it wasn't for the nerfs, I would say S+.
Yeah, probably.
If the stats, they did actually get butchered. But do you even remember like the initial version of this item where it was like 15%?
Yeah.
And this 12 version is still probably S+.
Yeah.
So this item is just mega like it is just the most stat pad item you could possibly get. And I don't know, there's no downside really. I mean, if you're not in the jungle, you don't get the passive, but like, who cares since you already get insane stats to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if it wasn't nerfed, I'd say S+, but because it is getting touched, I mean, I think S is perfectly fine.
It's so sad. You look at the base stats of something like this, and then look at the base stats of like something like Warband or whatever, and you're just like, how is this even like possible? The difference maker,
yeah,
but
oh, it's unfortunate.
yeah. And I think you're
dagger.
up for Boombas dagger.
Well, this in my mind, this is the equivalent to Warrior's Axe for junglers. It's
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You can't really go wrong with this item, but it's not crazy strong. Like this is probably the item you should go if you're like new to jungle or whatnot. Like, it gives you mana sustain, health sustain. You do more damage. Gives you that bit of true damage. It doesn't really give you any crazy stats though. But I mean, you'll be clearing the jungle so much more comfortably, and you get the option to start boots too, which if you go out of the jungle you can't.
Yeah.
It like speeds up the build a bit. Feels good. You don't really feel too pressured on your mana constantly. There's like no downsides, but it's not crazy rewarding, anyways.
Yeah, I think it's just pretty well balanced, probably around A. And then I think the biggest benefit is that you get sustain from it. So if you're like planning on, I don't know, getting poked out or needing that, then that's kind of nice for like jungling with. But I think the other thing is that you also can rush boots, like you said, and then rush boots 3, and then maybe a lot of times you can have your boots 3 for the first respawn of buffs, and then maybe you can make a play off of that. So if you have a strategy down for that, then you can go Boombas dagger and then rush your boots. But for the most part, it's just sitting around A. One of the upgrades is Boomba Sphere, which is the first upgrade we're talking about. And I really haven't done too much with this item. I just been either going boom. If I was going into this tree, I'd just always gone Boomba's hammer. That's what it is actually called. I think it is. So I don't really know too much like the effect or the feel of this item specifically. But I know that it's just not really that purchased that much, and most of the time, if people are in that tree, like I said, they're just gonna be buying Booma's hammer so for that reason, it kind of just loses a lot of value. You do increased damage to jungle. Is it jungle monsters or jungle like? Yeah, it's jungle bosses as well. Okay, so yeah. So you do actually kind of have that same kind of effect as the Seer of the Jungle, but the problem is it's just really hard to justify purchasing this over the other one. So I don't think it's too bad though, because you do true damage to all those structures as well, which is kind of nice. But I'd probably throw it in like B.
I think this item actually deserves A. I've played with it a little bit. It actually feels pretty nice. Like the stats are nice. They're not crazy. Obviously, it's a good bit of power, some HP, but the passive is actually pretty strong. You do more damage to objectives. Like you do percentage more damage to towers. You do the true damage to towers. Percentage more damage to all other like jungle stuff, and you get more gold. It's kind of like a mini boon in my mind.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like the jungler's version of Sentinel's boon. I think it actually feels pretty nice, but it's not like it doesn't have any like ridiculous mechanics tied to it though. It's pretty honest in its like play style, I guess.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, this is one of the few items that I don't even think I'm pretty sure I haven't built it a single time, so maybe I need to mess around with it more. So yeah, I plead the fifth on that one. But what do you think about Boomba's hammer?
Ooh, dude, okay. I first of all on the fun list, it's probably S plus, and even on the balance list, it's probably up there. Maybe not necessarily S plus, but it's up there for sure.
It's not
It
being
just
nerfed
makes
next
a lot
patch,
of
right?
characters. Yeah, no, it's not getting nerfed.
All right, we'll throw it in S plus then.
It's one of the items. It's one of the only items in the game that enable breaking the game, which I
Yeah.
think is why it would also be S plus on the fun list. Like it is breaking the game straight up, and it's just fun to do. Like it's fun to reduce your cooldowns after every ability by 1 second. It's fun to do more damage. The stats are also very cool. I think the stats are actually very nice, very fun to use as well. Like you don't necessarily need to get 40% CDR straight away. You could just get 20 from Boombas. You get pen, you get HP, you get like nice stats, sustain as well. It's just got it all, dude. I love this item. I hope it doesn't get nerfed too much, honestly.
Yeah, I like when they have items like that can kind of like obviously manipulate the game in certain ways, but also maybe like change your builds and make things like certain things viable. And the base stats on this item are ridiculous. Not to include the passive does like 10 things, and then the base stats give you like 10 things. So it's honestly just a very, very sick item. And once again, when you compare this item,
to you earlier.
I was gonna say once again when
I was talking to you earlier about fuck, dude, what are we
no,
doing? Oh,
there's a delay, so it's sometimes difficult. Like since you're all the way in Europe.
You talk first, dude. I'm tilted now.
I was just gonna say that. Now I forgot. Oh, I was gonna say when you compare the base stats of something like this to War Flag, it's just pathetic. Like of the difference between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is so funny. Like some of these stats just don't add up. I don't understand. But what I was gonna say though is, I was talking to you about like this Geb solo game that I played where I like 100 to 0 people in my ult because I played Boomba's hammer and I just did so much damage in a long CC chain. And by the time he was out of the CC, I'd probably be getting my abilities back up anyways.
Yeah. Get a Spear of Deso too, and then your ult's gonna be back up in no time.
I love this item. I hope it stays strong.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on to Gilded Arrow. This one's weird because I think people were actually buying this at first, but then I think people started to buy. They started to see that Deathstall and its upgrade were really sick as in our hunter builds. And then they started going stuff like Leather Cowl, and having that as their only lifesteal item kind of makes the builds a little bit more, little bit nicer. So honestly, it's hard to get a real gauge on this item, at least the start of it. I think it's viable, and I think it's decent. And the idea behind it is it's like a greedy hunter item that's going to get you like more gold and speed up your build throughout the game, kind of like the Sentinel's boon or the Spear of the Jungle or whatever. But honestly, I don't know. I don't see it being worth it over some of the other starters, especially like Leather Cow, just because it allows you to kind of allows you to do that thing where you can like manipulate your build a little bit and not have a lifesteal item and get like, even though this item is supposed to be for like a greedy hunter build, some of these other items are just a little bit greedier because it allows you to go other items and not have to invest into lifesteal as much. So yeah, but I think it's viable at least. I would say it's probably just like A.
Yeah, this is just like the Hunter's Blessing version of Season 8, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of like how Warrior's Axe and Boombas dagger work. There's really no downside to this item. It's just very plain Hunter's Blessing, basically. It does give you the bonus gold, though, I guess, which is a new addition. Not an impressive item, but definitely you don't feel bad about buying it.
Yeah, definitely. And then is that Diamond? Yeah, that's the Diamond Arrow.
Yeah, that's Diamond Arrow. So this one, this is the boon version basically of the hunter items or the jungle items, I guess, since we have Boomba Spear too. Just gives you a lot of gold, and it gives you a bit of attack speed. Well, a bit. I say a bit. It's actually a lot of attack speed. It's 60% when you get when you stack it up. I think you need 3 stacks.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, every other item already gives you attack speed anyways, and the basic attack damage bonus is 80. So it's on the better end of things, but it's not so much more that you would really want this item over some other item. I think Diamond Arrow is, it's, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better than, say, like Death's Embrace, but I don't think it's bad though. It's like, it's pretty average, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would probably throw it in like B. It's kind of, maybe you could argue A. It's kind of weird because it's like one of those items that does try and like speed up your build, like you're talking about, because it gives you that increased gold. But it's a little bit less so because it gives you attack speed, so it's more of an aggressive option than something like the Ornate Arrow, which we're about to talk about. So it's not as greedy as that thing, but it is. I don't know. I don't really see. It's hard to justify this over just another greedy item. Like at that point in the game, if you're at the point where you're upgrading your starter item, you either, maybe if you have this tree, you either want to go the Ornate Arrow so you can get to your like 3k pot and your boots selling a little bit quicker, or you just like kind of sell this and get like, I don't know, an even greedier item that does more damage. Like let's say if you didn't have Kins yet, or like, I don't know, maybe you're like in a crit build, you get another crit item that's going to make you do more damage. So I'd say it's pretty hard to justify in that scenario. But on the flip side of it, I think Ornate Arrow is actually a little bit better because this is the greedier option, which gives you a lot more gold, because basically the entire passive is dedicated to you getting more gold. So it's kind of a weird idea. You're at the point in the game, like I said, level 20. You're like, basically, I mean, most of my ranked games end in 20 minutes anyway, so I don't even know if people are even building this. But if you get to that point in the game, you can get to your 3k pot, you can sell your boots and get another item. You can maybe replace one of the items that you had early on in the build that you don't want anymore. You can do a lot of stuff with all the extra gold that you get from this, and it's going to make you hit a lot harder than the other people in that game. Like, you're just going to have so much more gold than them. You will feel the impact of it. So because of that, I actually think it's a little bit better, probably around A. But it's just one of those things that's so hard to actually get a feel for, because every single one of my ranked games ends in 20 minutes. So the idea of just trying to be that greedy, it doesn't work a lot of the time.
Yeah, the Ornate Arrow, I think Well, I mean, I would also rate it a bit higher than Diamond Arrow because of like all the stats it has the potential to give. I think both of these items you can look at them as risk versus reward, because they don't actually like give you anything you want. They just give you gold. So they're the risk is fairly high, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, even though you're playing a hunter, so it's probably not. But the reward I think is just higher for Ornate Arrow than it is for Diamond Arrow. I think it also allows, like what you were saying with Letter's Cowl, I think this in the same way kind of allows you to not go a certain crit item. Like say maybe next patch when Fail Note gets nerfed, maybe you could forego Fail Note. You could just go Wind Demon with this item and then like couple it with something else, whatever you want, because it also gives crit. I think it's decent. I wouldn't say it's too strong though. A is perfectly fine.
Yeah. What do you think of the Leather Cow? Second A plus.
Well, I would say, yeah, I think A plus for sure. I think this is. Well, I just think this is basically Death Stall, but rather than going for the sustain option, it goes for like the more DPS option. I think you can compare these two items pretty closely, and whatever you want, really, it's preference at this point. Like, do you want the sustain from Death Stall, or do you want the like DPS? And you also get some movement speed too from Leather Cow. Pretty decent though, good stats, and it allows for that like avoiding lifesteal build, which is pretty nice. You don't need devos necessarily. Solid item.
Yeah, the upgrades, at least one of them is decent, so you don't feel too bad going into it. But it is just kind of like that second sustain option that you can kind of get away with, and it kind of manipulates the build, which is kind of nice. Which is the first upgrade that you would get, which is it the Hunter's Cowl? Yeah, I think it's believed they call it the Hunter's Cowl. I would throw it in A plus. Like I said, it kind of can be your like one lifesteal item. Get more of a greedy build and go for either like the crit route that's pretty viable right now, or if you want to go the pen route or anything like that, kind of just frees up that build a little bit. And it also gives you an attack speed aura around you, which is kind of nice to have. It doesn't necessarily make too much sense as a hunter, especially if you're going to be like near a mage and that's like the only person near you. Maybe your support's near you. The extra attack speed for them isn't going to do all that much, but it's going to be good around objectives. And there's certain skirmishes where it can really pay off. You're near a jungler or anybody just grouped up as 5. So the passive aura on it is kind of nice. But you also do get that extra movement speed when nobody's near you. So kind of similar to the base of it. But like I said, I think just the base stats that it gives really help out with the builds and allow some variety. So I think it's kind of like an A plus upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's like Leather Cowl and then Hunter's Cowl. Like it's basically Death's Stall and then Death's Embrace.
Yeah.
Just one does one thing better, the other does the other thing better. I think this is a must buy though if you have 2 hunters on your comp. Like one hunter has to go at least Leather Cowl just because the DPS increase is pretty high to just forego it.
Yeah, the double hunter comps work really well with it. So should I throw this next one in C?
Oh, Leader's Cowl, dude! Jesus Christ. Well, this is also the other starter item. This is the second one that I've never seen.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't remember anyone buying it. You were saying earlier that the 5-man in base with Nuwa strat.
Yeah. You group up around him so that you outnumber everybody and just have you have the extra power from it. But that
is so fun. Specific though, and so like I don't know. I mean, I think the concept of this item is pretty fun, at least, as opposed to Seer of the Jungle. Like, honestly, if we had a tier lower, I'd put Seer there. Like, if we had that D tier, I'd put Seer of the Jungle there. I'd leave this at C tier. Just because, like, at least, like, there's something you could do with it, right?
Yeah.
There's, like, some fun things. I think the downsides of the concept are way too big for Smite in general. Like, I don't know why that downside so big exists in the game.
Yeah. Exactly. It's another one of those win more items that like it doesn't like if you're outnumbering them and you have extra power from that and you're already outnumbering them, either one you're winning the fight because you've already killed them, or you're just having like 3 people like ganking one person, or you have like I don't know, you just have multiple people above them. So maybe it can help you kill people a little bit quicker, but it just doesn't make sense. You'd rather just be as strong as humanly possible, or as what'd you say? I don't know. I was about to make a joke about being deities, but you want to be as strong as possible in the 5v5. That's how Smite works, and that's how like your builds like should be. Maybe not the 5v5, but as strong as possible in a 1v1 scenario, in a 2v2 scenario, in a 5v5 scenario. Like That's kind of how it works. So this item just doesn't really have an identity. So yeah, I'd say it's C. Don't really ever buy it. And we have the warding sigil, or as we like to call it, the sigil. This, honestly, you are tanky as hell when you buy this in lane, like much tankier than like a warrior's axe. But it does, you feel the like the lack of poke, because warrior's axe, at least you can like steal some health from people. That doesn't have that, or warding sigil does not have that, and it also has no power on it, so you don't like clear anything fast. It's really hard for you to like hyper farm in the early to mid game with this item. I think a couple of the upgrades are pretty viable, and I like those, and we can talk about those. But the actual starter item itself, I feel pretty bad ever buying. If I'm gonna go on any of the upgrades, I'm almost always skipping warding sigil, even if I'm against a guardian, because one of the best things you can do against guardians, especially slow guardians like a Sobek, or like, I don't know, just think of any other example like a Terra. One of the best things you can do against them is buy power and just out farm them. If you're buying like a warding sigil against them, you're kind of playing into the fact that they're really slow early game. So it just kind of doesn't make too much sense as an item, in my opinion. So as a starter, I would throw warding sigil in probably B.
Yeah, this is so weak, dude. I mean, I remember when it got buffed, and I was like trying it out in lane. At first, it felt kind of nice, like I was just not taking damage. But then you realize, like, you don't do damage yourself,
Yeah.
and it's it's not like you're gonna win in a poke trade. You're literally just not taking more damage. You're not even gonna be in a position to fight back too often. Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty weak. I don't ever buy it personally. I mean, I think if you were to buy it, you'd probably rush boots and then buy it. That's the only time you would maybe buy it, because it actually just doesn't do anything at the very start of the game.
Yeah. But what do you think of the upgrades? Is this one?
Ooh, Sigil of the Old Guard.
Is that Sigil of the Old Guard?
That's the mid one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know the colors.
So the only time I actually buy this item is when I'm comboing it with other items. I don't think this item on its own is too strong. Like, just the mid, it has okay stats, and 12% mid, but mid in general, in my opinion, is pretty weak on its own. Like, you have to combo it with, say, like an Oni Hunters or a Spirit Robe, in order to really feel it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's weak, but like as a standalone item, I guess I wouldn't rate it too highly.
Yeah, I'd say I'm tempted to put it in A, just because I do think with like a mitigation build, it can be pretty strong. And mitigation in general is probably one of the few ways to actually kind of feel tanky late game these days. But the problem is I just don't see it being in line with like a Warrior's Axe, or even you can maybe argue it's in line with these. Yeah, I'd actually say it's probably.
Actually, I guess you could compare. Yeah, just put it in A, I think.
Yeah, throw it in A. Yeah, like you said, it does have some decent base stats, especially if let's say they have like a magical jungle and like a mage mid, and they have like a Hebo, Alquang jungle, and a magical mid. It does give you 75 magical prop plus the mitigation on the passive, so it can be nice to throw into a build in those scenarios. But even then, it's like, there's some just better options that you could probably go above it. But yeah, I've only really messed around with it in mid build, so I can be there. And Fusigo, I think this is one of the few items where we're probably going to disagree on. Deathwalker, I swear this item is broken. Well, first of all, it literally was broken, like as in it was like not working. It wasn't working before. It wasn't proccing as it was supposed to. And I think maybe you or somebody else, maybe it was Nika that I was watching, was saying that he felt like it was horrible because it wasn't working.
No way, dude. Oh my god, I wasn't tripping. I thought I was tripping.
Hey,
People were saying that the item is shit, but I was like, no way, it's just not proccing. Like, there's no way. Like, I was not tripping, dude. I was right.
Yeah, and I don't know if they fixed it because I kind of slowed down playing with it, but I like when I see it proc in a fight and I have like a Pridwin and I am like, I don't know, no matter what character I'm playing, but I use it a lot on Sir because it does magical damage, so the proc shred's really cool. When I see it like proc, I'm just like, holy cow, it literally does 500 magical damage. That's pretty insane for just 4 abilities now, and because they buffed it. So I think this item is low-key like broken. I'm tempted to just throw it in A+, but I swear the more that people mess around with this item in their builds and like diving backlines and like seeing the damage actually pop off, I think it maybe could go higher. You can maybe argue A, but I would like to throw in an A+.
I mean, I think it's pretty decent too. I think on a fun tier list, it'll be S plus.
Yeah, for sure.
I love playing around with the item, and it's just it's nice to see when it explodes and it does so much damage. Like I feel like it can kind of change a fight out of nowhere. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's pretty decent. People keep saying it's bad. Uh, it was for sure. I think it was way worse when you needed like 5 abilities and 400 damage. But I think since then it's actually like pretty decent. And as you said, like with Cerberus, for example, or say even Cthulhu, right? Like when you're in your ult, and you can just combo it so well. I feel like with certain characters and get a lot of damage off.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw it in A just so people aren't like, what? That's Infused Sigil over Boombas Spear or over Hero's Axe. But I think I'm telling you, it's gonna go up. I'm telling you.
Oh no, it is. It is. This item has a bright future ahead of it.
What do you think of mannequins now? Now that all is said
Ooh,
and done,
Mannequin, dude,
after being absolutely broken.
This item is so butchered, man. Oh, I feel bad for it. Honestly, it was in a torture chamber for like 2 months.
It's got some light of day. It got its like time in the spotlight, but then it quickly dwindled.
Oh man, I feel bad for this item. Honestly, mannequins. To be fair, it was too strong. It deserved nerfs, but I
For
think
sure.
the nerfs were in the wrong spots. I think what they did to it now with the removed flat damage reduction, I think that's what it should have been initially, and that's like the only nerf it should have been potentially.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, because right now it's just a dead item in my eyes. I don't see anyone buying it.
Yeah, I think you could maybe argue it on like Erlang Jungle and like I don't know something else, but it went from being bought in every single role to literally none of the roles. Like even, I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Every single role, like people were buying it in support. I saw people playing obviously mid hunters and buying it, and now it's just never bought. And it is seeing some slight changes in the next patch. That's something to keep in mind. But I do think that this item went from S plus tier to probably B. I wouldn't quite throw it in C because I think if you buy this item still, you're not gonna like. It's not something that it's not like these other items like these stupid items in C tier where you genuinely want to lose the game if you buy them. I think if you buy this, it's like not the absolute worst thing in the world. So I would probably throw it in B. If there was an A minus, I might throw it in there. But
nah, I would definitely throw it in B, dude. I'm not throwing that in A minus, man. It's a dead item in my eyes, man. It got so butchered. I mean, yeah, like when you buy it, it doesn't feel horrible. Like you still feel fairly good about it, but it's way too weak right now, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then what do you think about the mace? Wait, I think it's me talking about the mace.
It's your turn, yeah.
Well, it's hard to justify unless you're going like a boots 2 start and then building the upgrade later on. But it's really hard to justify buying either of these. They're supposed to be auto attack character items, specifically I think because they have prots on them and then the flat damage reduction. It's supposed to be catered towards the soul lane, but I just think if you're gonna go an auto attack focused item for like the soul lane builds, there's just a lot of better options. So this does have the benefit of doing a lot of extra damage to jungle monsters, but like we kind of talked about before, the idea of just like buying items to do extra damage to jungle monsters is a little bit weird because most of the game is played off of PvP, not exactly PvE. So it's a little bit odd to look to go that in a build. I think both these starter items are pretty trash. I'd probably throw them both in B, but I could start with Mannequin Mace. I just don't think it has too much of an identity.
Yeah. I mean, Mannequin Mace is. I never liked this item, anyways. Like when I saw people buy this, I thought they were trolling. Like you might as well just buy a normal item instead. It doesn't really do much more other than boost your objective damage. Really, I guess the attack speed reduces kind of nice, but I mean
Not
they're
anymore.
nerfing that too.
Yeah, not next patch, because if you have this plus Witchblade, and Witchblade is a much better item, then this won't do anything.
I don't know. I mean, it's not bad, obviously. Like, it works, but it's just not very strong. And Mannequin's Hidden Blade. Honestly, I love the concept of this. I think the passive is fun. but it's so situational and so hard to use. Like I've only ever used this on Neath, and it's pretty funny to like
Oh
one-shot
yeah.
people, but that's about it. I've never really seen this item get used too well outside of that, because you don't really wanna like poke and then 5 seconds later specifically start a fight. Like it's
Yeah, it is weird that you have to be out of combat for it. So it doesn't really make too much sense, but yeah, I do like the kind of the concept of having it. It's kind of like a worse Warrior's Axe in a way, because it does the percent health damage, but it's kind of like if you're building this as a soul laner, you'd much rather just have Warrior's Axe,
yeah.
which does the same thing but is better, and you don't need to be out of
Wait, they
combat
actually,
for it.
yeah, that's true. What the fuck? They actually do the same thing, but it's even worse in the damage aspect, because it does physical damage. Warriors Axe does true damage. Like
Yeah.
it's just straight up worse in every aspect. It's
Exactly.
worse in terms of how you apply it. It does worse. It does less damage. It has worse stats. It doesn't even heal you. Jeez.
There's some weird things where like there's similar like right now in Smite. We could talk about this later, especially when it comes to like Witchblade and Midgardian. There's some weird things in Smite right now where some things do the same thing, but one of the items is just much better at it. Or the upgrade is something that you would like, for example, the Hidden Blade, I guess, is maybe the upgraded version of Warrior's Axe, but for auto attackers. But it just like same thing with Bluestone, where the upgraded version is like an auto attack item, but it's for ability based characters. And I don't know, there's just like some weird stuff going on with the items right now. Kind of I think some stuff needs to be cleaned up, I guess you could say. But yeah, moving on. Tainted Steel. I kind of see B, or no, not B. Maybe A as like more of like a counter item like tier. And I also think Tainted Steel you shouldn't buy every game, because it's not an every game item, then you're not going to feel good with it every game. But healing is very prevalent right now in the meta, and I honestly think Tainted Steel is pretty sick, especially in soul lane. Can't really build it too much in other roles. I think you're maybe going to be able to build it in other roles now that they buffed the power on it in the next patch. That's something you might see. So maybe that increases the versatility of it. But I honestly think this item's not too bad, especially with just how prevalent healing is in the current meta. I would throw it in A+. Because in the scenarios that you would buy it, I do think it's pretty strong, especially the upgrades, which we'll talk about in a sec. So maybe
yeah, I mean, I agree with. I actually would put it in A+, maybe because of the buffs that it's getting. Like I think the buffs are going to be pretty good. If 50 gold reduced and you get 5 power on physical, it's 15 power total. I mean, I think it's also pretty sick. It works well against a lot of picks, and it actually just works. You don't even necessarily need to play against someone that just heals like a maniac. I feel like it just works no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't ever really feel bad about this item.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really good. The other item that I think we
Oof,
both
dude.
like is Tainted Breastplate.
I think honestly, I would say even S+, maybe. Like, dude, this is disgusting. I think it might fall off simply because other anti-heal items are getting better and this one is not getting changed.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it has ridiculous stats, 50% anti-heal for 8 seconds, and it applies no matter what you do. You could like, does it apply when you like mystical mail take them? I know Sundering Axe applies
it
when
does.
you mystical mail take
It does.
them. So you get Sundering.
You just have to hit them with anything.
So like no matter what you do. Yes, I think this item's insane, especially with the amount of healing people are buying. It counters a lot of items. It does well into Boombas Hammer. It does well into Sundering Axe, Boon, Sentinels, Death's Embrace. It does well against Lifesteal builds, Stone of Gaia, anyone with sustain. Like this item just has it all.
Yeah.
Well, it just has one thing, but it does it all.
Yeah. It's 50%, especially with like all the like current like anti-heal items, and even next patch they're still not going to be where they were. So I think it's still going to see a ton of value, and I honestly think, agreed, that's S+ probably one of the best starter upgrades in the game, no doubt. And just because, like we said, healing is like such a prevalent thing in the meta, and just having a 50%, I wouldn't say it's an aura because it's not an aura, you have to hit them. But if you're in the middle of the entire team fight as a soul laner, you're gonna be hitting people pretty often and getting those procs on everybody, and it lasts for 8 seconds, so it's very, very, very valuable in those team fights. So I think agreed, Tainted Breastplate S+, and it's It's younger brother.
Literally the opposite.
Tainted Amulet is C for sure. I tried to make this item work, but it's just horrible. Not only because if you're ever going into that tree, you almost always want to just anti-heal people more than making yourself heal a little bit more. Because if you think about it, if they have any anti-heal and you have a Tainted Amulet and they put their anti-heal on you, you are now healing or not healing as much. And instead, if you had a Tainted Breastplate, you'd be anti-healing them for 50%, just walking around with your big anti-heal cock out and just like making their lives horrible. So it's just almost always worth it more to just anti-heal them more than healing a little bit more yourself. And in the healing that you get from this item to begin with is pretty pathetic anyway. So it's just nowhere comparable to 50%. 20% plus the healing is nowhere comparable to 50%.
Yep, I mean the biggest dicks are the 50% anti-heal dicks, and this is not one of them.
Exactly.
And yeah, the healing is so bad that I went to your stream and complained about it instantly. I think after I bought it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And the game before, I had played with it and like healed for like 50 from an Erlang ult. Apparently, I was toxic bladed, so that's why I didn't heal as much. But that just kind of goes to show that like it doesn't. It's not as good as just having anti-heal yourself. So,
yeah.
The one upside is that it has more magical protections, I think, than physical. So if you're really if you're against like a 3 magical, 4 magical or something, you can maybe try and go this instead. But physical protection is always good, so it doesn't really matter. What is this one? Is this the Gem of Focus? No, that's Archmage.
First we go Contra Gem.
Oh, yeah. Okay, my bad. I forgot. Okay.
Well, this is the go-to Mage starter item. I don't think it's crazy in any way. I would put it in A+. I think it just helps. It's very helpful to have this item. It gives you MP5. It gives you an okay amount of power, and the true damage is just nice to have. Like it's not overwhelming. You're not really gonna be like, damn, dude, I just do the most damage ever with this item. But the amount that it helps you with clear and the mana sustain, it's just too nice to not go this item, I think.
Yeah, it really helps a lot of like low pressure characters out early game as well. Mages that have trouble clearing kind of helps their early game because of the true damage on the wave clear and true damage in general. I am always scared of them just throwing that on ability or not on abilities. Well, yeah, abilities, but also items and stuff like that. But I think this starter item is actually pretty balanced and obviously a little bit on the better side for the mages in the mid lane, the go-to for them. So I would throw it around A+, but it's nothing broken. I agree with you there. But moving on, this is the Archmage gem, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's Archmage and then Focus.
Very good. This is a very good starter item. It basically is just another damage source for mages to allow them to increase their scaling through their abilities. But I wouldn't say it's like quite broken. I think it's probably sitting around A+. The best, maybe not the best, but one of the better options for mages in the game right now. And it gives you some nice base stats. And I just think the passive is really nice. It's kind of like Conduit Gem passive, but a little bit like on steroids, basically. So I would throw it on like A+.
Yeah, I was gonna say A+ as well. I think it's a bit of a shame that they're nerfing the identity of this item, though. I really dislike going into this new patch. This Archmage is gonna do 10% less scaling on its passive. It used to be 40, and then it's gonna be 30. It's gonna have more power though. But I really dislike that change because it's like I think the identity of this item is pretty cool. It feels very nice, and I think it's pretty criminal of them to like nerf it in the first place. It's not that strong. I mean,
yeah, it is.
It's just
I don't think it is. Maybe like the casuals are complaining because people are playing New on Arena and just one-shotting people with it and stuff like that. So gotta cater to them. What do you think of Gem of Focus though?
Oh, I love this item, dude. On the fun tier list, S+ again.
Yeah, for
no
sure.
doubt. I mean, I think it's actually pretty decent. I wouldn't say this item's weak in any way. And another thing I've discovered, like yesterday, I think I was in bed and I was like, wait a second, dude. Guardians with Gem of Focus. And it does surprisingly well, I think. The stats are basically what you want on a Guardian. Like you could normally you would go E-Staff, I think, as your damage option, for example, or Soul Reaver if you really wanted to be a little spicy. But I think if you go full tank with just having like boots as your damage item and then this plus Voidstone, your damage is actually very nice, and the stats are pretty decent defensively. You get some movement speed, you get some damage mitigation. I like this item a lot. I think it's fun to use, and I think there's a lot more versatility to it than what people might see straight away. And I think this item deserves to get bought a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. Would you throw it an A for that season?
I mean, I would throw it in A. I don't think it's as good as Archmage, but
Yeah.
it could go up to A plus if people buy it a bit more and make use out of like all the stats you get. I think it's just very well rounded, and if it just feels good.
Yeah, I actually agree with you everything you said. I think it's a little bit underappreciated and maybe underbought. And I think I went this on the PTS when Tiamat. I was playing some Tiamat solo. I went Conduit, so my early game wouldn't be as bad. And then I just went this later on in the game, and it felt really nice. You just spam your abilities, keeping that passive going, and you know, it obviously combines a little bit with her passive, just getting that damage mitigation or the damage reduction, I guess. A little bit of a difference, but you know, it still adds up pretty nicely. Yeah, I think it is a little bit underbought, and especially on those spamming mages, you know, on a character like Chang'e or something, or any of those Guardian solos, it's going to be pretty nice for them. So yeah, I do like the item. I especially like the idea behind the item. Moving on to Sands of Time. Honestly, can't really go too wrong with purchasing this in a lot of roles. I think you could, well, mainly just mid. You can't really buy it in any of the roles besides mid, but you can buy it a little bit in solo on certain characters. You go in like a Chang'e solo or like a Baron solo or something. But I don't think it's like that bad. I feel like it's just the problem is it's really hard to justify going that over something like Conduit Gem, because doing more damage is kind of always just nice. Plus, like, CDR in general right now is pretty easily accessible, especially in like solo, because you have like 20% on your blue buff when it's upgraded, and then in mid, if you have you know, like your Spear of Desos, your soul gems, like sometimes on certain characters, Chronos Pendant, stuff like that, like you don't really need to have CDR coming out of your starter items. So I think for that reason it's hard to justify, but I really don't think it's too bad, and I think maybe it'll be bought a little bit more with the changes and the buffs to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing really holding it back is the price, and like the change to Sands of Time will kind of fix that issue slightly. You'd always see people go Conduit Gem. Now, obviously, Conduit Gem feels good, and it's just very, very nice to have. But having the extra CDR, it is also slightly more power, if I'm not mistaken, and you have infinite mana at the start of the game, basically, with so much MP5.
Mm-hmm.
You might see people buy it a bit more. I think it's mainly just competing with Conduit Gem, and it's been doing a little bit of a worse job in terms of stats, but I don't know, it's comparable and it's not bad in any way.
Yep, agreed. This one's the pendulum. What do you think of the pendulum?
Pendulum of Aces. I mean, I don't think again. I'd rate it the same as Sands of Time, honestly. Like on the tiers here, I'd probably put it in A. There's nothing wrong with this item, really. It's just that it's competing with Archmage, and Archmage is just slightly better, I think. It is again a feel thing. Like you get the CDR, so you could forgo going CDR somewhere in your build. You get a lot of power from it too. It's more along the lines of like a gem of focus in terms of what it's trying to do. It's like just making you feel a little bit better, just generally speaking, rather than giving you a lot of damage, right?
Yeah.
It's not bad for sure, but it's not over the top.
Yeah, it gives you a ton of MP5, so you basically never run out of mana, and then you also have the 20% CDR. The problem I have with items giving you CDR as your last item is that, like I said before, Soul Gem is basically in every build. Spear of Desos in a lot of builds these days. You're already at like 20% CDR, whether you have cooldown boots or not. You know, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you have some CDR somewhere else in your build. Regardless, your last item having 20% CDR is a little bit weird, because you just get a 500 pot and then you're at 30%, especially in most builds. Then it's like, you really want that 10% more. If you really want that 10% more, you could go the starter item, but like 30% a lot of the time, it's just like, it's good enough. And it's just hard to justify going like a late game CDR item, because at that point in the build, you either made it worthwhile, like the build, you made the perfect build, you know, you planned everything out and you made it so you wouldn't overcap your CDR by that point of the game, at the end of the game. So you didn't have any other CDR earlier on in the game. So are you playing a character that doesn't want CDR, or are you playing a character that does want CDR? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird to make it as viable as possible. So I just kind of see it as like a little bit awkward to build, but I do think the power and the utility as far as like the mana and the CDR is kind of like a nice item. That's why it would probably be around A. This is a freaking meme item. I don't. It's
I want a meme Tierlist, S+ for sure.
Yeah, it's S+ for sure on a meme. I think it's bad though. I don't like. It's the first of all, the cooldown. Are they changing the cooldown at all? I don't know if they are.
Nope.
Okay, they're not changing the cooldown at all. So it's a 10-minute cooldown, right? It literally takes 10. If you die and you get the passive from this, it's gonna take another 10 minutes before it comes up again. So, for one, being able to survive for a little bit longer, like most of the time, if you're getting killed and you respawn from this, especially as like a mage mid laner, I really feel like if you're a mage mid laner, very squishy, and you survive for 2 more seconds, it's really not that big of a deal. You're getting run down. I could see this being kind of useful on, like, I built it in a couple games on soul laners because it does give you prots. It gives you physical prot, magical prot, and a little bit of power. So surviving a little bit longer on a tank is a little bit more useful. Well, you could probably argue because doing a little bit more damage is sometimes nice, but just being able to stall as a tank can be pretty good. But I just don't really see a use for it. Like I've said throughout this video, and I always say it's always better to just be more useful at the start of a fight or in the middle of a fight than it is to just, like, I don't know, have something to like rely on at the end of it, you know? So I would say it's probably B. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not like super bad because the stats kind of carry it basically.
Yeah.
But the passive, so I remember when this item was first released. Like I was on the dev client. I think like I was one of the first people that saw the game outside of the actual developers. And when I saw this item, I thought that you would like literally chronosult back in time
That would be
where you
cool.
were safe. Like imagine just chronosulting back to where you're safe, and just forget the whole story. You got picked, but you didn't actually. You're
Yeah.
in a good spot now. That's what I thought this item did initially, but then I read it like further and literally saw it as well, and I was just so disappointed.
You just
with
sit
the
there
passive.
like a sitting duck.
The stats are there, but the passive is just pretty boring. I think they could have done a little bit of a better job with it.
Honestly, if it was like a Chronos Ult, I think it'd be balanced because it's a 10-minute cooldown. So every 10 minutes, you basically can get picked for free, kind of. And even then, I think it would still be not that great.
It kind of makes sense because it's also called alternate timeline. Like Chronos goes back in time to where he was full HP, right? So like, why doesn't the item that controls timelines bring you back in time to where you were full HP? Why does it just bring you to like 25%?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Probably around B. What do you think of Vampiric?
Vamp shot. Ooh, dude. I mean, the starter items is pretty insane, and it's getting like slightly buffed. Or I guess not necessarily like buffed, just like a slight change. I guess it is getting the price buff, which was definitely needed.
Yeah.
But procs and sustain are dropping in trade for more magical power. Now I think this probably averages it out to be the same at the end of the day, but the cost is really, really big. I think this item it actually helps Guardian solo a lot in terms of staying relevant in lane.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's very strong, but it does its job, I guess. I don't know. It kind of to me feels like a different version of Death Stall. It's like an ability Death Stall essentially, but a little bit worse.
Yeah. I think the actual, like, the start of it, if we're just talking about the pure starter item, is really strong. Kind of does exactly what you're buying it for. It allows you to be a little bit more aggressive, gives you a ton of sustain. Obviously, it gives you some physical prots, so you can kind of tank. The base stats are really good: 15 magical power, 75 health, 5% magical lifesteal. Not too bad. But I always just have a problem buying this item because I think the upgrades are just so horrible for solo laners specifically. I think that the upgrades for it kind of work for mid laners, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But as far as the starter item, it does have that versatility because you could buy it in mid, especially if you're against like a a physical heavy comp, or maybe you're going against like a hunter mid and you want some physical prot, and maybe you can upgrade it later to like blood soaked or something. But I always feel bad buying this item as guardians, because if I purchase this in the laning phase, then I won't get to go any of these awesome fun items later on that are just so much better. So as a starter item itself, I would say it's probably like A, maybe A plus, the actual start of it. But
Yeah, I'd say A plus the actual start. I think.
yeah,
I mean, it's like it's better than Deathstall in terms of what it actually provides at the end of the day. I think,
mm-hmm.
like with the extra power and also has like natural tankiness tied to it with the prots, but it's worse than Deathstall for the upgrades. So
Yeah, throw A
I
plus.
think A plus is.
But as far as the upgrades go, so Blood Soaked Shroud, this is basically the one that gives you. It's basically Vamp. It's kind of what Death's Temper is to Deathstall. Blood Soaked Shroud is the one that gives you the increased effect of the passive, where you get more health back for hitting enemies. You get more mana back and everything. It also gives you some increased lifesteal, and it stacks up. So you get 15% magical lifesteal from the item itself, and then you get magical lifesteal from the passive. So if you're going like, I could see this item working on like Hebos or these characters that maybe are building like some soul gems and can probably throw a Typhons into their build and just get a ton of lifesteal in their build and just get a ton of power from it. But I personally haven't seen it built too much, because it just kind of seems like, well, for one, I don't know if like the sustain build is really that relevant. The only real like sustain item that mages go in the mid lane is soul gem, and then if they're playing a healer, they're just gonna have like lotus crowns and stuff like that, and damage items like Ratatouille. So I think the identity is like a little bit lacking in this meta, but I really don't think it's too bad of an item. I would probably throw it in B. Maybe one character you definitely can make good use out of this item is Anubis. So if you really like playing Anubis, then go for it. But what do you think about this item?
I'm a little bit sad. So I personally like this item. I think it's on the right path to being like a decent item. But what bothers me is like every other starter, or like I guess maybe not every, but like most of the starters have health restore in percentages, especially the upgrade. Like Death's Embrace percentage health restore, Sundering Axe percentage boon,
Mm-hmm.
Boombas hammer. But then this item you upgrade it and it's flat 12.
Yeah,
Like why is every other item a percentage, but this one is a flat 12?
that is weird.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, especially considering its other upgrade drains the percentage of your health. Why is everything
Yeah.
in percentages, and then this is the odd one out, like being a flat, like health?
I don't get it.
I think if they did that one change, not to make it overwhelming like flat, but or sorry, no overwhelming percentage, but keep it consistent at least. And I think with a percentage health restore on this item, you could actually feel good about it by buying it on Guardians.
Yeah, I think that would probably make it nice.
Like, as I said, like on the right path. I think this it's not horrible. Like you can definitely feel what the item does pretty well, but it's just a consistency issue that holds it back.
Yeah, especially because it's like more niche, and I just I think if they did throw the percentage on, you probably see it pop more in solo, and because then the upgrade would be pretty nice for some solo laners. But what do you think of sacrificial?
I mean, I think this item's kind of fun. I think it's a little bit ridiculous with some interactions, though. Like, the bonus damage is nice. Obviously, the stats are pretty good. I mean, if the stats are very good, actually. So just looking at it stat-wise, probably like A plus, I would say. But the passive is so gimmicky and just has the worst interactions ever with some characters that most of the times end up being not worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say B for sure. Actually, it's so too gimmicky.
Yeah, in general, doing damage to yourself is just, I think that's too weird of a concept, and you would think that like because it has lifesteal on it, and maybe you have like lifesteal the rest of your build, every time you do damage to something, you're gonna get some health back in return. So the trade off is there, but in Smite, like you're not hitting every single ability on an enemy. Sometimes you're not even like you're throwing out multiple abilities and not really hitting many people, or you're not getting a ton of value out of it. Not only that, but you kind of if they have anti-heal on you, if they have like a Tainted breastplate near you, or if they have, maybe their jungler or somebody has like Toxic Blade or Brawlers, like you're gonna be healing less in general. So not only are you doing damage to yourself, but you're actually not getting that return value as well. So because of that, I just think the passive is just a little bit too gimmicky. Although the only thing that maybe would throw it up to like A or something is the base stats that are pretty insane. 100 magic power, 20 prot, 100 health, and 15% lifesteal is pretty sick for an item. But I think, yeah, I agree with you. The passive just a little bit too gimmicky. So moving on to Benevolence. Oh my goodness, 2 of the coolest upgrades. And on the fun tier list, S+ for sure. But as far as the start goes,
yeah, it's just depressing.
It's just like a horrible start. The only time I ever build the upgrades of this item are when I skip the start of the item. So I honestly think maybe Benevolence is the only one that we should throw in C. What do you think?
I wouldn't necessarily throw it in C just because you're not trolling by buying it. I feel
That's
like.
true, yeah.
Because there's some use to it. And one thing that's actually very interesting is if you die and buy Benevolence, if you don't have a starter item, you get a lot of gold. Undo it, right? Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
But I mean, honestly, it is also slightly getting buffed. It's getting a little bit more HP. I don't think it's bad, but it's just straight up worse. It's like, I mean, I guess you're comparing it to Sentinel's Gift essentially, but it kind of falls in the same place as Warflag in my opinion. Like it's trying to do something that Sentinels isn't, but that's not what you want, so it's bad.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I actually thought about like, because you can buy the upgrades at level 17, and the passive that you get from this item actually gets more value when you're a higher level. So if you're like level 14 or 15 and you buy this item, you're actually going to get more XP and gold like passively, which is kind of an interesting thing if you're able to like fit that in the build later on. And most of the time, like I said, in order to get the upgrades of this item, I usually skip it, especially in solo. You never want to buy the tier 1 of this in solo. So but the upgrades are awesome.
Compassion. I get to talk about compassion, bro. Well, first of all, I think this item is just like it hands down the best passive I think of any item in the game. Maybe, like, my God, is it strong? It's 15% damage mitigation. It's just straight up better than Sentinel's Embrace actually in terms of its passive. Straight up better. Even a fully charged Sentinel's Embrace, so like 50 prots, Compassion will give you more, but it doesn't get weaker the more you spread it out.
Right.
And one other thing, this item is you can stack it. So if you have 4 players with Benevolence, that one person is taking 60% less damage.
That's crazy. But I didn't know that.
You're probably never gonna see it. It's more of like a fun thing, I guess, but you're never gonna see the 60%. Maybe honestly, it might be a strat to have like a Zeus mid and then 4 Benevolence.
Oh my gosh! Imagine like the all-out assault or infinite assault with 4 afros and like a cuckoo or something with Lotus Crown, and you just all go compassion.
No, on the fun tier list, S+, and the passive is just ridiculous. The only thing holding this item back really is the stats are just not great, but I wouldn't necessarily put it super low because of that. I'd probably put it at the very least S.
Oh, you think it's S?
Yeah, I think this item is ridiculously strong.
Okay.
Wait, hold up. No, it does have a one downside. You can't go blink with it. So you're purely playing defensive. Go A+.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think this item's really good as well. I've messed around with it a lot, like Afro, and like some other characters. Like I remember you told me on stream to try it on Baron with the Baron in the middle of the team fight, and it does. I think it is actually really strong. I do think that maybe the passive is a little bit more strong than Sentinel's Embrace. The problem is it's a little bit harder to fit into your builds in a normal Conquest game, just because Sentinel's Embrace upgrades from Sentinel's Gift, and it's like everybody goes that every single game. Whereas in solo, if you're buying this item, or even in support, you're not going to be buying Sentinels. And then if you're buying this in solo, you're giving up a lot of these other items, and you're also maybe skipping you're not skipping your boots, but you're rushing boots instead of getting a starter item, which is something that you have to play around as well. So it's a little less versatile than something like Sentinels, but I do think it's really strong, and as an item itself, I think it's like A+. And Compassion, now that they've taken the extra damage, they didn't take it out, they took out the double damage. It still does extra damage to towers, but What's there to say
Ooh.
about this item? I mean, the base stats are horrible. The passive is really cool because it kind of
Oh,
allows for tanks to have like a kin size, but it's just so hard to like make work in a build. Mainly, I think because of the stats on it. If this gave you, let's say it gave you 400 health like it currently does, but it gave you, let's just say 25 of each prot, and then the same passive, I think this item would be so much more viable. But because it's supposed to be like this greedy item for tanks later on in the game, and it has no prots on it, and the passive is purely damage, it just doesn't. It's hard to make work in a build unless you're playing a certain character that can like that is already pretty safe, like an Ama or like something like that. So honestly, I think now after the changes they made to it, I think this item's not too great. I would probably throw it in B, if I had to put it somewhere. It does a lot of damage though. That's the sad part.
yeah, I mean it's kind of fun to use and it's fun to like put in, or like I guess it's not fun to put in builds. It feels like you have to try too hard, but it's like it's fun to have, I guess, in builds, not put in.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I like it personally a lot. I think it's fairly fun. But yeah, the biggest drawback to this item is the stats. Um, it just doesn't give anything. It just gives HP. Like it is so useless in terms of stats. You basically don't even have an item.
Yeah, you just have a
Um,
passive.
I think. I mean, I don't understand why they don't put some stats to like more benefit the passive. Like, sure, maybe prots would be a good idea because it's for tanks, but it doesn't. They don't even allow like hunters to buy. Like, maybe put attack speed because if you attack faster, you get to use the passive more. You know, just something to at least help one of the groups to want to build this item to make it more attractive. With just HP, it's really hard to justify buying it. But obviously, the passive is just fun and pretty good, so I don't think it deserves to be in the troll tier, but not great.
Yeah. I think it's probably around B. So that will be the starter item upgrades and the starter items tier list. So this is all of them right now. If you want to take a screenshot, I guess you could have done that anyway, but that's what we think about them currently, and in the coming patch, we obviously took that into account as well. So that is all of them. I've actually been having a ton of fun with all these starter upgrades in Season 8. I think literally every single one, even the bad ones, have just been a cool addition. Like, just another thing to test out in Smite and mess around with the builds. And I think the fact that like you can only buy them at level 20 or level 17 has like made it hard to manipulate your build and do certain things, and it's just made the game really fun for me. I don't know if you feel the same way. Just like trying out everything,
Yep,
but
I mean, I think Season 8 Smite is the best Smite's ever been. Like, honestly, the starter items alone are just kind of carrying the fun portion of the game for a lot of games, in my opinion. Like, it's so fun to like look forward to the item to like finish off the build. You know, like say with the Geb game I was doing, like it was so fun when I got Boomba's hammer, or like when you get
yeah,
your Death Toll upgrade and like all of a sudden you can just 1v1 this guy like it's nothing, right? Like it's so fun to just have such a strong impact in the game, essentially game breaking. Like they allowed you to break the game with these starters, and I'm really happy with them. I hope they don't nerf them too much. I'm really annoyed that they nerfed Archmage. Like I hate the direction of like nerfing such an item, especially its identity. But I mean, I guess if you gotta do it, you gotta do it. But for some of them, maybe if they made them a little bit more easier to access, you'd probably have even more fun. But yeah, I don't know. Just the best addition to Smite, I think, since the beginning of time, I guess.
all right. Well, I think we're actually gonna end it there, and then maybe cut it to the other part. But either
uh,
way, do you want to shout out your YouTube and your stuff, Deathwalker? Deathwalker started uploading YouTube videos, so you guys need to go check them out. Obviously, I'll put a
oh
link in the
yeah,
description. So
the link is a little scuffed, so I can't really shout it out
if you
on
just
this
look up
video. But
Deathwalker Smite, I'm sure your YouTube will pop up, right?
or just click on Fineokay's link. I mean, since you're pretty big yourself.
Yeah, we could do that. That
But
works as well.
yeah, I've started some YouTube. It will be like a mix of, or at least it's leaning towards a mix of like sort of educational, some gameplay, and like some shit posting, basically. And it's like more fun oriented with just a splash of education, I guess.
Yeah. I watched. If you guys want to watch a banger video, watch Cthulhu. But every time he uses the mire, it speeds up. So that's a good video if you want to watch a meme smite video. So yeah, thanks again for joining me and making this Tierlist Deathwalker. And maybe if this video gets 2K likes, we'll release the actual full item tier list as soon as possible as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you guys learned something, learned a thing or two, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe and healthy as always. Peace out.